Oh, Lord have mercy. Hello. hello. Good evening. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening. And welcome to The Bench Podcast with your host, Franklin Lukason. Welcome to The Bench Podcast with your host, Franklin Lukason. I am right here with you today. Bro, what's all that noise outside? I don't know if the mic is picking it up, but outside there's a load of, I think, motorcycles or something, and all of them are making that their bring bring noise. So it's very loud. It's a bit disconcerting at the moment, but we stay inside. We stay inside. We are out here. Welcome back to the bench. Welcome back to the bench. When I got on the mic, I was gonna do. I don't know. Maybe you guys are YouTube kids like me. I was a YouTube kid. I used to watch like KSI, Comedy Shorts Gamer. And for all the people who used to watch Deji, remember when he used to be like, "Hey guys, Comedy Shorts Gamer here." "Hey guys, Comedy Shorts Gamer here." Oh, that was a time. Old YouTube was a time. Old YouTube was a time. I feel so old saying that, but old YouTube was a time. Like secondary school, I grew up with KSI, Deji, all of the sidemen, uh, Ali A for Call of Duty, and then there was this other guy, Prestige is Key. Prestige is Key for COD. Prestige is Key was the guy, man. Prestige is Key was the guy, and then there was I can't remember what other channels I used to watch, but it was mostly Sidemen, KSI. Like it was just mostly gaming channels. Mostly watch gaming channels, but I don't really watch YouTube like that anymore. I feel like as I've got older, I just can't I can't enjoy the content as more. I don't know how to explain it. Like I try to watch KSI now and I'm like, bro, what is this? Like what is this man talking about? Or I try watch the Sidemen videos, or I try watch like Speed or whatever it is. I'm just like, nah, this is actually for the kids. Like like I think I've full out hit unk status. Like straight up. I'm 24. My knees don't hurt anymore, thank God. But I think I full out hit on status. Like I'm trying to hear about the state of the economy. I'm trying to hear about the state of the economy. I'm trying to hear about the state of my soul. I'm I'm actually not out here trying to just trying to just watch funny videos. Beta Squad, that's who it was. I was trying to remember the other people I used to watch on YouTube. I used to watch a lot of Beta Squad, but I wouldn't even say that I've outgrown it. I just think at certain periods you just focus on different things. I think at this point in my life, I don't have as much time as I would have to watch YouTube. Don't have nearly as much time as I would have to watch YouTube. And I don't have the energy or the desire. Like I stick on YouTube and I'm like, can someone put on football highlights? I want to watch football. It's so bad. Every time I go to my friend's house, I go on her TV and I just look up football highlights, like any football highlights, and I just sit there and watch it. And everybody looks like me like I'm crazy and I'm old, but I'm like, listen, there's football. I want to see the highlights. Let me grab a sip of tea. Ooh, that's a good tea. Actually, I'll just hold the tea in my hand today. It's not too hot. That's a good tea. That's a good tea. Today we're drinking peppermint tea, the best tea in the whole entire world. Peppermint tea is the greatest tea in the whole entire world. And I got myself a new stash. So today we're sipping on some peppermint tea. But yeah, check in, guys. How we doing? How we feeling? How's everybody? How's your week? How's your day? How's your hour? Like, what's going on? How's everybody feeling? I'm trying to do more kind of check ins. I want to make the bench a bit more interactive. Not necessarily that you guys can answer me back, but just like if we all just take some time to think, like, how have we been feeling? What's been going on? I can go. How has my week been? I think my week has been good. It's also been a little bit overwhelming. This week I have been a little bit overwhelmed. Um, Monday, well, I was traveling at the weekend. So, well, traveling isn't like transport. When I say traveling, it sounds like I was flying around. No, I was taking transport. So I got the bus up to Dublin in the early hours of Saturday. And then I got the bus down to Limerick from there. Then I was in Limerick Saturday night, Sunday. And then Monday morning, I got the train back from Limerick to Cork. And the train was delayed by like an hour and a half. So it was a long weekend of journeying. I was pretty tired. Came into the week. I usually play football on Mondays. And like we had our football session and it was good, but I found myself kind of losing my head a little bit. Like, you know, when you go through like proper like head loss when you're playing football. Like it wasn't even that I fully lost my head, but I would maybe misplace a pass or misplace a shot and I would just scream like ah! Just kind of like not even getting angry at myself. I was just annoyed. I was just pissed off. I like it happens sometimes. It's not every week, but I was just like, nah, maybe I'm not feeling the best. It felt like I had a lot of pent up emotion or something. So I think from Monday I've just been feeling a bit overwhelmed. Tuesday, feeling a bit sick. I picked up what I think is a cold. It subsided a lot in the one day that I've had it, but so I'm feeling a bit like disoriented as well. My head feels a bit heavy. My nose feels a bit stuffy. My throat is a small bit scratchy, a small bit dry. Feeling a little bit woozy, a little bit disoriented. So, overall, I think emotionally, it hasn't been the most fun week. I could also feel a bit of anxiety picking up as well, which is never a fun time. It's never a fun time. Not gonna lie to you. Been feeling a bit of anxiety picking up, and so I've been having to take some time to think about it. Like, what am I anxious about? What thoughts are making me anxious, and what do I need to do? Because I find that with anxiety, the best way to fight anxiety is with action. Because anxiety is thoughts about what could happen, what could potentially happen, how situations can potentially play out. But anxiety functions as though you don't have power and authority, but you do. And so it's like, okay, in the areas that I have power and authority to make decisions, what can I do? And so I've been feeling anxious about a couple things. Yesterday, I took some time to like pray, address those anxieties, and then I created an action plan. I have two actions I need to take, both of which are conversations. I started the first conversation last night. The next conversation I plan to have tomorrow. But it's just I've been needing to have some conversations with a couple people, and I've been scared to have the conversation. So I'm trying to take some time to have the conversation. And this is an encouragement for you too. Hey, listen, if you have conversations that you need to have, you're feeling some anxiety, you can take some time, figure out what you're feeling anxious about, make an action plan, execute, execute, execute. We're all about execution. We're all about execution. But yeah, that's how I've been feeling. A little bit woozy, a little bit disoriented, a little bit anxious. But other than that, I'm good. Like, hey, God is still good. I've still got, what is it? What did they say? Still got something in my body, something in my bones. I actually don't know. I'm not, I feel like today I'm making it up on the fly. But anyways, we can get the introductions out the way. There was actually something I wanted to talk about today. It's a like it's a discussion that's been rolling around in my mind for the best part of 2 years. And I feel like it's something that's been highlighted a lot more for me in the past year because I've burnt out several times in the past year and just navigating conversations with people in similar places and just like experiencing it, and reading the Bible and coming to understand what the Bible has to say about this topic. And so today, what I wanted to talk about is productivity versus bearing fruit. Productivity versus bearing fruit. This is gonna sound like a sermon, but just bear with me, guys. Just bear with me. Usually, I don't. frame conversations like this, but today I actually have a topic that I want to talk about and address. But yeah, I want to talk about productivity versus bearing fruit. And just to give some context, I think, it's clear to everybody that the society we live in is hyper fixated on productivity. Society today is hyper fixated on productivity, being able to squeeze out as much productivity as you can possibly get out of every situation. And so there is an entire $1 billion industry on productivity where you have all these productivity gurus telling you how to maximize your workflow, how to improve your efficiency, how to think like a wizard and operate like a champion. Um, and like there's all of these things that are being carefully curated into teaching people how to become productivity machines and how to get to their destination as fast as possible. And I think that's one of the things. Productivity is hyper focused on speed. It's all about speed and efficiency, speed and efficiency, speed and efficiency, speed and efficiency, right? And so that is the productivity side of the conversation. The productivity side of the conversation is we live in a hyper productive society that is geared towards making people machines in a way, productivity machines. But then the other side of the conversation is bearing fruit, which is what the Bible describes product or how the Bible describes productivity and how it should be. Because in the Bible, this hyper productivity mindset that we see in the world today actually doesn't exist. Like it doesn't actually give guidelines on maximizing and efficientizing is not a word, but like super maximizing, giving everything 100,000 efficiency. You know what I'm saying? But there are guidelines for sowing seed, working the ground, using wisdom, and bearing fruit, right? In the Bible, we are given the analogy of people as trees. And then with these trees, we have fruit. And no, with these trees, we have seeds. We sow seeds, we till the ground, we work the ground, we provide nutrients for these seeds, we care for it, we cultivate it, and in due time, we bear fruit. Um, there's a Bible verse that I will read that kind of like frames our thinking in this direction a bit further. And like while we're having this is a conversation. So like I don't have like points one, points two, points three, point four. This is a conversation. But just hear me out when it comes to productivity versus bearing fruit. I think it should be in Mark. So the Bible verses I'm looking for are in Mark. I think they're Mark 4. Um the parable of the sower. So the parable of the sower. Yeah. Mark 4 chapter Mark 4 verses 1 to 20. So parable of the sower. I'm going to pull it up in my Bible. Mark 4 verses 1 to 20. Mark 4 verses 1 to 20, right? Mark 4 verses 1 to 20. Right. Mm, yep, okay. So Mark 4 verses actually no, I'll just read Mark 4 verse 1 to 8. I think Mark 4 verses 1 to 8 kind of has everything I need to make the point that I'd like to make. So, Mark 4 verses 1 to 8. If you have your Bible, please open your Bible. Mark 4 verses 1 to 8. Again, Jesus began to teach by the lake. The crowd that gathered around him was so large that he got into a boat and sat in it out on the lake, while all the people were along the shore at the water's edge. He taught them many things by parables, and in his teaching said, Listen, a farmer went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering the seed, Some fell along the path, and the birds came and ate it up. Some fell on rocky places, where it did not have much soil. It sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow. But when the sun came up, the plants were scorched, and they withered because they had no roots. Other seed fell among thorns, which grew up and choked the plants, so that they did not bear grain. Still, other seed fell on good soil. It came up, grew, and produced a crop, some multiplying 30, some 60, and some 100 times. I'll read verse 8 again. Still, other seed fell on good soil. It came up, grew, and produced a crop, some multiplying 30, some 60, some 100 times. Okay? So, let me sip some tea. Yeah. Jesus is giving us this parable about a farmer and seed, and the farmer sows these seeds. So, he sows it in one area, and actually, let me read it again. Sorry, I'm a little bit all over the place today. I'm not feeling the most energetic. Yeah. So a farmer went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path. The birds came and ate it up. Some fell on rocky places where it did not have much soil. It sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow. But when the sun came up, the plants were scorched, and they withered because they had no roots. Other seeds fell among thorns, which grew up and choked the plants, so that they did not bear grain. Still, other seeds fell on good soil, right? So, some seed fell along the path, birds came and ate them up. Some fell on rocky places, they didn't grow because it was shallow. And some fell among thorns. But the seed that was in good soil grew, produced a crop of 30, 60, and 100 times, right? So, the Bible is giving us this image of what it means to sow seed and to bear fruit. To bear fruit, to harvest that fruit, which is a produce. That's where the word productivity comes from. Productivity comes from produce, which means to get a yield, right? I actually have my dictionary, so we can look at what produce means together. So, what does it mean to produce? And again, just walk with me on this line because this goes somewhere. Like, I'm not just talking for the sake of talking. Just walk with me for a second. So, what does it mean to produce, right? To produce means to manufacture or create, to make. To make something happen or to make something exist. To show or provide something for consideration. And then you have productivity, the quality of being productive, the efficiency with which things are produced. Let's actually look at what productive means. To be productive or productive means producing large amounts of goods or crops, doing or achieving a lot. So let's read that again. Productive means producing large amounts of goods or crops, or doing or achieving a lot. When we go back to Mark 4, verse 8, it says, still, other seed fell on good soil. It came up, grew, and produced a crop, some multiplying 30, some 60, and some 100 times. So you could say that it was productive. Other seed fell on good soil, and they were productive. They grew, produced a crop, some 30, some 60, some 100. So to be productive is to produce a lot. To be productive is to produce a lot. And productivity is the end point of fruitfulness. Productivity is the end point of fruitfulness because when you bear fruit, you are productive. You're producing a lot. But productivity itself is wrapped up in the process of sowing seeds and bearing fruit. Do you get what I'm saying? So there is a $1 billion industry of productivity, but productivity is actually a natural result of bearing fruit and following the process of sowing seeds and bearing fruit. This is very important. And the reason that this is very important is the hyper productivity mindset that we have in the world is neglecting something very, very important, which is you can't bear fruit if you don't sow seeds. You can't bear fruit if you don't sow seeds. You can't bear fruit if you don't sow seeds. But even deeper than that, it's also the fact that it is impossible to be fruitful all the time. It is impossible to bear fruit every single day. It is actually impossible. There is no tree that bears fruit every single day all through the year. There is a process to bearing fruit. And the process to bearing fruit is sowing seed in good ground, working the ground, making sure that the seed has sunlight, making sure that the seed has water, making sure that the seed has adequate nutrients, caring for the seed, caring for whatever it sprouts, managing it, and allowing it to bear fruit in due time. And the bearing fruit in due time is the productivity. And this, again, is very important. I think the way productivity culture is shaped, productivity culture tells you that you need to be productive always, you need to be efficient always. But when we come to understand ourselves as trees, living trees, we begin to understand that that actually doesn't align with the way that we have been created to be, because it is impossible for a tree to bear fruit all year round. It is impossible for a tree to be productive all the time. That is actually not possible. It doesn't make sense. Um, and if you're wondering, like, wait, where in the Bible does it say we're trees? Like, where does it give the analogies of trees? Like, where's this whole tree something something come from? I'm gonna point to a verse. This was Jesus talking. Every time I want to reference a verse, I just have to go on my phone and make sure it's the right verse, so I'm not calling out nonsense. But there is a place in the Bible where it says, "Remain in me, and I in you." Let me find it. Remain in me, and I in you. Yes, John 15, verse 4. So, again, if you have your Bible, open to John 15, verse 4. John 15, verse 4. John 15, verse 4. This is Jesus speaking, and he says, "Remain in me as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself, it must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me." And Jesus is giving this analogy as us as almost part of this tree system. And the branch must remain connected to the tree for it to be able to bear fruit. And like this is a separate analogy Jesus is giving in terms of us being able to bear spiritual fruit as believers in Jesus. But just taking that analogy of people as trees in general, it then kind of leads us, or how do I say this part? It helps us to understand that it is impossible to bear fruit all the time because trees, again, cannot bear fruit all year round. I think looking at humans, it would make sense to see how we are trees because humans come from seed, which is the sperm. Humans come from seed. That seed is placed into the soil, which is the womb. That seed is cultivated for 9 months, grows, and becomes a living tree. And that living tree then begins to exist outside of the soil that it was cultivated in. But then that living tree still needs the nutrients, that living tree still needs the water, that living tree still needs the sunlight, that living tree still needs the cultivation. And then in due time, that living tree continues to bear fruit. And again, this is just kind of helping reshape how we see ourselves as people because society will have us believe that we're machines, that we're supposed to be productive all the time, that we're always supposed to be high energy, go, 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 let's get this bread. That is important because when we begin to understand ourselves as trees, living trees, we also begin to understand that we do not have the capacity to be fruitful all the time. There is no tree that can bear fruit all year round. I'll keep saying this. There is no tree that can bear fruits all year round. If that is the message for this entire podcast episode, it is that there is no tree that can bear fruit all year round. And so, when we begin to understand ourselves as trees, I think it changes how we approach caring for ourselves. It changes how we approach production because society will have you believe that you're supposed to be productive all the time, that you're supposed to do it like this and do it like this to be able to 10x your productivity, to be able to maximize this and to be able to maximize that and to be able to like, do you know, it's hard to put this part into words, but have you guys ever seen those videos? And like, it kind of leans into more of the red pill and the hyper masculine stuff. But have you ever seen those videos of those huge guys and they're like, yeah, man, I work like 80-hour weeks. I don't sleep. I don't rest. I don't even eat. I don't even drink water. I just I just sit in my office and I work and I work and I work and I work. I remember seeing this video and like it was supposed to be a funny video, but it didn't make me laugh at all. I was actually just like, what the heck is this? But it was this guy talking about how he breaks his day into 4 days. Everybody has one day. He breaks his day into 4 days. And so he has 4 6-hour days. So the first 6 hours he's working for 6 hours. The second 6 hours he's working for 6 hours. The third 6 hours he's working for 6 hours. And then the last 6 hours he's sleeping. So he's able to work 3 times as much as everybody else because he breaks his day into 4 days and he uses one part of that day for rest. And like this is how he's hyper productive and able to outperform all his opposition, right? And like this is presented in this like, oh, I'm so ahead of the game. Like I'm so productive. I'm so able to do things and get things moving. And it may look cool. And I think for guys especially, because guys have this sense of wanting to be productive, wanting to be seen doing work, wanting to kind of how do I put this part? Like a lot of guys feel defined by the amount of work that they're able to do. And they feel like society only accepts them when they're able to show that they're productive or to show that they're doing a certain amount of more work or they're kind of occupying a certain space, they're at a certain level. And so, like, because society has geared us to think like that, people could watch that video and then be like, yeah, this guy is spitting, man. Like, what I need to do as a man is work 18-hour days and sleep for only 6 hours. And we would call that productive. But again, when we come to understand ourselves as trees, we realize that trees actually were never meant to operate like that. They were never meant to function like that. That was never meant to be the case. We were supposed to have periods of work and we were supposed to have periods of rest, right? If you look at the creation story, God worked, God rested. He didn't need to rest, but he took time to rest because the completion of work is rest. The completion of work is rest. Your work is actually not complete until you have rested because that's where you take the time to recuperate for the next round of work. But I think society is going in a weird direction. It has a lot to do with hypermasculinity, I think. But society is going in a very weird direction where it's all about how much work you can do. as a content creator, it's all about how much videos you can put out. And if you don't put out a video every day, you're gonna lag behind. As an employee, it's about how many hours you can work and how many hours overtime you can put in and how much of yourself you're willing to give away to the cause. But that's actually never how it was supposed to be. Because again, if people are trees, then we don't have the capacity to be productive all the times. We actually need downtime. Not just downtime, we actually need periods where there is a lull. We actually need periods where we are not able to be productive. If you look at the life cycle of a tree, well, no, not the life cycle. If you look at the seasonal cycle of a tree, right? Um we have spring, we have summer, we have autumn, we have winter. So trees go through 4 seasons every year. It is only in one of those seasons they actually bear fruit. It is only in one of those seasons that trees bear fruit. So in an entire period of a year, and hey, listen, maybe we might need to get farming experts to come on here and talk about how trees bear fruit. But in the entire seasonal cycle of a tree, which is 4 seasons, trees only bear fruit in one. And like we saw in Mark 4, verse 8, that's where you get your 30-fold, your 60-fold, your 100-fold, right? So it is 3 seasons of preparation, planning, organization, structure, stewardship, and then 1 season of bearing fruit and collecting the harvest. And this kind of leads into the next part of the conversation. Let me drink some more tea. Are you guys with me though? Like, is what I'm saying making sense? Because I know I have a tendency to just ramble. Like, I feel like when I'm in that zone, I'm just, I'm just going. It feels like when I'm in that zone, I'm just going. But like, are you guys picking up what I'm putting down? Are you guys getting where I'm coming from? Just to summarize before we move on to the next point, hyper productivity is actually counter to God's design. Hyper productivity is counter to God's design. We were not created to be productive all the time. There are seasons of planning, there are seasons of preparation, there are seasons of pruning, and then there are seasons of produce where we produce the fruit and we reap the harvest. But because we neglect the planning, because we neglect the pruning, because we neglect the preparation, then during seasons of harvest, we try and bunch everything into one. And that's how we can be so burnt out all the time. So this leads into the next point. One of the issues with hyperproductivity is that productivity is actually only supposed to exist in 1 season out of 4. And so when we make every season about productivity, we're neglecting all the things that actually need to be done. Again, looking at the life cycle of a tree or the planting of a seed, there's different things that it requires. Like, say, with Mark 4, verse 1 to 8, the sower has, or the farmer has the seed, right? The farmer has the seed. The seed is the vision, the idea, the goal, the ideal, the end point, whatever it is that you want. The seed is the smallest version of that. The sower sows that into the ground. And so the first consideration is, what ground does the sower sow it into? We see that the sower sows it in a rocky area. And so it actually can't take root. And so it dies. The sower sows it among thorns. The thorns choke it out. The sower sows it in it. Wait, there was one more. I think it was like birds came and took it. Wait. Let me open it up again. Mark 4, Mark 4, verse. Yeah, Mark 4, verse 4. As he was scattering the seed, some fell on the path, and the birds came and ate it up. And so when it comes to the end goal, which is the produce, the first consideration before anything else is, where did you place the seed? Where has the seed been placed? So long before there is supposed to be any produce, where has the seed been placed? Has the seed been placed in the ground, in soil that is conducive for growth? Long before we even get to productivity, long before, is the environment, or yeah, does the environment foster growth? Does the environment foster produce or productivity? Before we're even able to produce anything, is the environment conducive to growth? And so, sorry, I'm getting a bit excited now because the points that I had before in my head are suddenly connecting dots and making sense. Thank you, Jesus. And I'm just like, I'm firing them out because I feel like my brain is on a timer and I have like 20 minutes left. So, the first consideration is, where has the seed been placed? First consideration is, where has the seed been placed? And then that parable ends and it talks about the 30-fold, the 60-fold, the 100-fold. But even just thinking about it, okay, the seed has been placed in good soil. What else does a seed need to grow? A seed needs water and sunshine. So, is your seed receiving water and is it receiving sunshine? Is it receiving water in terms of like, is your seed being refreshed? Is your idea being refreshed? Is your vision being refreshed? Are your goals being refreshed? Water is refreshing and it needs that refreshment to be able to grow. Is it receiving sunlight? Sunlight is part nutrient, part strength. Is your vision receiving strength? Is your vision like is your vision being hidden in the dark where it would just shrivel and die, or is it being brought to the light? Right? And then there's nutrients. Is your receive is your seed receiving nutrients? The nutrient kind of goes into the soil that is placed in. It goes into added nutrients, like farmers would add manure and stuff to like juice up the soil and give it that extra boost. And so before, long before we've even considered the produce at the end, there's all these other things to consider. Where has the seed been placed? Is the seed receiving refreshment in terms of water? Is the seed receiving strength in terms of sunlight? Is the seed receiving nutrients in terms of the environment and just general other additives that can be given to it to boost it? Is the seed being given time? And this is another one that we don't even talk about because seeds actually take time to grow. Before there is produce, there must be patience. Seeds just take time to grow, and you don't get to speed up how fast a seed grows. You don't. The ground and the work you do determines the fruit that will be born, but you actually don't get to determine how fast the seed grows and how quickly it bears fruit. What you are, the responsibility that God gives you is to steward the seed, to manage the seed, to care for the seed. But you don't get to determine how quickly it bears fruit. I think this is probably the area I struggled the most. Not probably. This is the area I struggled the most. I'll put my hands up. I'm telling on myself. This is the area I struggled the most because I am very, I am extremely go, go, go. Like to the extreme. Like at my old job, we did this thing called the Gallup test, which kind of shows you where your biggest strengths are. And I think it has like different categories. One of the categories is executing. I think one of the categories is communicating. One of the categories is strategic thinking and all that. And I think the other category was like relationship building or something. Five of my top 10 attributes were in executing, just getting stuff done. Three of them were in my top five. And so, like, I'm so go, go, go. I'm so for the productivity that I forget to be patient and allow the seed to bear the fruit in good time. I think we neglect the responsibility of stewarding and managing the seed because we refuse to be patient in allowing the seed to bear the fruit in due time. I'll repeat that one again. How did I put it? I think I've forgotten what I said. I think I'm not getting that back. Guys, I'm not joking when I tell you, like, low key, I'm actually kind of loopy right now. Like, I think I'm seeing stars. My head is gone, but we need to get through this episode, so let's do it. But I think what I'm trying to say is that we neglect the work of stewardship because we refuse to be patient in allowing the seed to bear fruit. So when it comes to properly producing, when it comes to properly positioning the seed, we refuse to do that because all we're thinking about is the fruit. When it comes to giving the seed nutrients, when it comes to giving the seed sunlight, when it comes to refreshing the seed, we neglect all those things because, again, all we're thinking about is the produce, is what's going to come in the end. But before that end, there is a lot that happens in the middle in the form of stewarding and managing and taking care of the seed. And then there is time and then there is patience. I think the next thing that also needs to be talked about is pruning. Now, pruning is way further in the agriculture process. Like, I'm not an agricultural guru, but like pruning is more for trees that already have branches. And what pruning is essentially cutting off branches that are not bearing fruit, cutting off branches that are being more of a hindrance and are preventing the tree from bearing as much fruit as it can, right? So you have pruning. A lot of the times we neglect the pruning too because we're so focused on the produce, because we're so focused on productivity, because we're so focused on, I want to get as much out of this as possible right now, we also neglect pruning. Pruning, which is taking off what is not necessary and what is hindering us from producing as much fruit as possible. And I think for the seeds that God gives us, a big part of our pruning process is our character, our habits, our thought processes, our mindsets, how we see ourselves. A lot of the time, we are so focused on the produce and the final outcome that we neglect the character development that we must go through to be able to bear as much fruit as is required. I think even just looking at trees and observing trees, like we've got an apple tree in my house back in Port I'm actually a Port man, unfortunately. But like the first time the tree was planted, the first set of the first set of apples were not edible. Like they just weren't good. Do you know what I'm saying? The first set of apples just weren't good. Fruits were born, but they weren't good. And then in that next year, there had to be a pruning process, and there also had to be a maturing process for the tree to allow it to bear fruit. And then it did bear fruit, and it bore fruits that was edible. So there wasn't just a produce, there was an edible produce. There was a produce that was actually able to feed people. And that was because the tree took time to go through its development and to mature. And yeah, in a lot of situations, we neglect that pruning, we neglect that development, we neglect that maturing. Because we lack patience, we refuse to do the work of growing. And so, in a lot of situations, the produce comes out too early and it's inedible, and we're trying to short circuit the progress or short circuit the process. So we've talked about we've talked about the planning, we've talked about the preparation, we've talked about the pruning. Now we could talk about the produce, the actual outcome. In Mark 1 to 8, verse 8 tells us you get your 30-fold, you get your 60-fold, you get your 100-fold. A huge thing to remember again is that that actually only happens at one point in the entire year. In the entire life cycle, it only happens one time. No, in the entire seasonal cycle, autumn, spring, summer, autumn, winter. In that entire cycle, fruit bearing only happens one time. And then the whole process starts again. But in that one time, you get your 30-fold, you get your 60-fold, you get a 100-fold. So you get bang for your buck based on how well you did your work over the last 3 seasons. And I want to highlight this because this is really, really important. I think that a lot of the time in our lives, in the areas where we desire to be productive, one of the biggest issues, how do I put this part? The reason we face so much lack of productivity is because we refuse to do everything else that brings us to the point of yielding fruit. We're refusing to do all the other stuff. We're skipping steps. And so it's like you want to do an assignment, and your assignment starts when you sit down and start the assignment. You didn't read the assignment briefing, so you don't know what the assignment actually is. You didn't do any research. You don't even have a notebook or a pen that you're going to write the assignment on. But you sit down at your desk and you're like, I'm going to get 100% on this assignment. How? You've done zero background work. And so it's something that I've been learning a lot in the past 2 years, especially. In the past 2 years, I've come to realize that my unwillingness to follow the process that leads to produce, that leads to bearing fruit, I've realized that my unwillingness to follow that process is because of pride. Like huge, serious, massive, humongous pride. Crazy pride. It's because of pride. Because I feel that I am smarter than everybody else. I refuse to follow the appropriate steps. And I just jump in the deep end and I'm like, yeah, I know exactly how this is going to work out. And then it doesn't work out. And I'm like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? And I think I'm coming to realize that bearing fruit is a lot less about hard work and a lot more about stewardship. Bearing fruit is a lot less about hard work and a lot more about stewardship. If bearing fruit happens in one season out of 4, then the amount of fruit that is born is dependent on how well you steward the other 3 seasons. If bearing fruit only happens in one, then the amount of fruit and the quality of fruit that is born is dependent on how well you steward the other 3 seasons. The other 3 seasons run for a very long time. And so it is not about how hard you're able to work in those seasons. It is about the wisdom that you use to navigate those seasons and steward yourself and your resources within those seasons to be able to prepare you for the fruit that will be born, that you will harvest. And again, harvest only happens at one point in the seasonal cycle. Harvest only happens at one point in the seasonal cycle. It only happens once. So this hyper productivity that we see on the internet is a lie. and it's a perversion of God's design. Hyperproductivity is a perversion of God's design. It is a perversion of God's design for work, and it is a perversion of God's design for rest. This is not what He intended. And it's clear to see because when people prioritize hyperproductivity, you will find that they're using different means and different substances to circumvent God's natural design. And so I want to be hyper productive today. I'm drinking 3 cups of coffee to give me caffeine boosts up the wazoo. Up the wazoo is crazy. I'm actually a cork man. Wow, up the wazoo is what the old people say. I'm so cooked. Caffeine up the ras. That's more like me. Caffeine up the bomba. And so in this quest to be hyper productive, you're overworking the body. You're overworking the body. And so, because the background work for preparation, planning, pruning, character development isn't being done, the fruit bearing process is all that's focused on. And then there's this um, artificial structure created to support the fruit bearing process. And that's how you have someone drinking 4 cans of Monster a day to get through work. What about sleep? What about rest? What about eating a balanced diet? What about taking care of your mind and your body? And we may not see how big of an issue it is, but I really and truly believe that the world is going through a crisis, especially the Western world. I think the Western world is going through a productivity crisis. And it's the reason why so many people are burnt out and miserable. So many people are burnt out and sad because we've created this structure that says you're only as valuable as the amount of work that you're able to put in. And so people are overworking themselves. But because there is no adequate rest, because there is no adequate recuperation, because there is no downtime, the small downtime that I had, people are filling it with substances. The small downtime that is had, people are filling it with, how do I put this part? With the small downtime that is had, people are trying to use it to find what will satisfy them. Like, have you guys ever, have you guys noticed, right? Someone will be working at the most miserable job, but they're always talking about their holidays. They're always talking about the holiday that they've booked, the holiday that they've planned, the holiday that they just came from, the holiday that they're going on. So their day to day is terrible. And they're always looking for an escape. And I think that is a result of our hyper productivity culture. Hyper productivity culture leads people to seek out escapes. People are actively trying to escape from their reality. And so I think the way that we come against this hyper productivity culture is when we start to respect the natural order, which is preparation, planning, pruning, fruit bearing, and resting. Taking the time to do the background work, being diligent to bear the fruits and to harvest it, and then actually taking the time to rest before we go again. And I think it's only when we start to do that that we will be able to live abundantly on the productivity side of things. Whew. I have said a whole lot of words, man. But okay, I think that's the part where I'm done talking in a more official sense. Guys, let's just have a chat, honestly. Like, I think all of this hyper productivity stuff, you look at it on the internet, and I feel like all of us inherently, and somewhere in our hearts and minds, we know that it is wrong. But everybody's on that vibe. And so it feels like we all just have to join in on that vibe. And so you have someone who will go to the gym, will go to work, will then work an extra 3 hours in the evening, will then go out that same night, will then come back and watch TV, will sleep for 4 hours, and will go to work the next day. And so a 20, there's a 20-hour span of just constant activity, constant activity, constant activity, constant activity, and no rest. And then that person shows up to work the next day. How are they able to be productive for the next day when in the previous season, I guess, there was no planning, there was no structure, and there was no organizing, there was no character on display. All there was harvest, 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 harvest. There was no rest. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think for me, it's become an important lesson, or it's becoming an important lesson because it's how I've lived my life, most of my life, up until this point. Like, the biggest example I can think of is probably my leaving cert. Like, my leaving cert was one of the greatest messes that I've ever experienced, just live, oh, straight off. It is one of the biggest messes I've ever seen. And I was in it, like, I orchestrated the whole thing, but it was such a mess. Like, I have grace for myself because I actually was 16, and 16-year-olds aren't exactly known for having common sense. But it was so stupid. Like, all through the year, I did not do an adequate amount of work. I just didn't. I was messing around. I was Dawson, and then we got like a month off to study for the leaving cert. And in that month off, I was cramming 2 years worth of work in 1 month. Right? You're cramming 2 years worth of work in 1 month. I didn't get through all of the syllabus on time, and so the nights before the exams, I was getting 2 hours of sleep every night. Keep in mind, the leaving cert runs for 2 weeks. The leaving cert runs for 2 weeks. For 2 weeks straight, I was getting 2 hours of sleep a night. Maybe bar one night or two nights where like my body just shut down. I was getting 2 hours of sleep a night. And like during that period, I was actually delirious. Like I was dizzy, I was dehydrated, I was tired. I had some of the most insane migraines I've ever had in my entire life. I was discombobulated. I was confused. I was still able to show up to my exams and write the exam, but like I think on an experiential level, I was miserable. And so I did the exams and I got good grades, but the whole experience was miserable. I'm thinking back to it, I'm just like, what if I had actually used those 2 years appropriately? Like I didn't have the wisdom that I have now, fair enough. But what if over the course of those 2 years, I had actually taken the time to plan, to prepare, to prune, and then to harvest at the time of harvest? College, I did the exact same mess. Which year was it? College second year. College second year was wild. I think college second year. After college second year, I was like, yeah, I need to give my life to Christ because this is a bomba. I can't, I can't do this anymore. But again, similar thing. DOS for the whole entire year, and then in the nights leading up to the exam, I'm doing all of my study. And so I'm cramming 4, 5, 6 months worth of curriculum into one night. And so in that one night, I'm popping caffeine pills. I'm getting zero sleep, no rest. And so because planning, preparation, and pruning has been neglected, the harvest process is a mess and no fruit was born. Like I failed 3 exams that year. It was it was such a mess. And I remember being in one of the exams. I'd done no study the whole year. I did zero study the whole year. I did all my study the night before the exams. I couldn't understand anything. I didn't understand anything that I was reading, but I stayed up studying the whole night. I got into the exam and I was delirious. Like I was seeing stars and shapes in the back of my eyes. And I think like I can't remember if I passed out, but like I had to put my head on the desk for like 10 minutes and just close my eyes because the headache I had was insane. And I remember I got like 12.5% on that exam. I'll never forget it. I got like, no, no, I got like 20 something percent on the exam. And then I had to repeat the exam in the summer. And I just spent the summer studying like a normal person. And like, not like I'll do an insane amount of study, maybe 30 minutes a day studying that course. And I go to the exam. The exam is so chill. I get it first. I was like, this wasn't even hard. I just didn't respect the proper process of planning, preparation, pruning, and harvest. And I have grace for myself because, again, I didn't have the wisdom that I have now. I didn't have the understanding that I have now. But I think in the culture that we live in, it is just becoming more and more important to remember that God actually has a design. God actually has a structure. He didn't leave us with no information or no direction. And so when all these hyper productivity gurus are coming in and selling these lies about productivity and selling these pills that boost productivity and selling this mindset of you are worth as much as you are able to produce, that is where we can come in and say, nah, that's not true. Like, I know what the truth is. I know what the word says. I know how God has designed and structured out this whole thing. And so those are my points, guys. I hope, honestly, I hope this has blessed someone. Like, really and truly, I hope this has helped someone because I'm so tired right now and I feel like I'm just rambling. But hyper productivity, how do I put this part? How do I actually put this part? Hyper productivity hurts far more than it helps. Hyperproductivity leads to burnout. Hyperproductivity leads to mental illness because you literally your brain and your body does not have the capacity to manage all of this load that we are putting it through. Like it just doesn't have that. We were meant to go through seasons and cycles and processes. And because we don't do that, we continue to struggle. So this is an encouragement, guys. It's an encouragement for me too. Like I think it's only really in the last 2, 3 months that I've kind of begun to understand this more, the importance of planning, preparation, pruning, and then harvesting, and then rest. Rest, I'm still struggling to figure out, but it's only like in the last 2, 3 months. So imagine in the last, what, 10 years of my life, I've been operating full speed ahead 24/7. And then I wonder why I look old. Nah, I'm joking. I don't look old. I do look a lot younger than I used to look, though. Like, as of now, I look younger than I did when I was 16, which is insane. You should see pictures of 16-year-old Franklin. Bro, it was such a dark time. It was such a dark time. But yeah, guys, okay, I'm at the point of the episode where I'm actually rambling now. Like, right now, I'm actually rambling and I'm going to stop. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have received something from this. I hope that this has blessed you, honestly, because I feel like I'm doing this at like 20% capacity. But I hope you receive something from this. If you listen this far, thank you so much. I love you. I will catch you in the next episode. Bye bye. 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 Oh, Lord have mercy.